Pandora's box is about to open wide.
Good day to you, ladies and gentlemen. Pandora's box is here again. This is the second old school episode in 2 weeks. Can you believe it? What's even going on? Is it 2024 or is it 2022?
Yeah.
But yes, happy to be here with you all again, guys. And thank you to everyone that gave us a warm reception last week when we released our last episode. I'm glad to see that all you old school Pandora's peeps, friends of the pod, I should say,
many.
are still out there and happy to join us on our voyage through space and time. Today, as always, we've got some shenanigans planned for you guys. Last week we were talking obviously about the really cool confirmed DNA sample. Obviously Drew wasn't here. He was busy having some DNA. He was having some dentistry done.
Root canal, baby.
Yeah, savage. You know, costs a lot of money. But as I was saying to him, you know, a lot of people can't even afford to get it done these days. So you know, just
including me.
Just but you can just about.
My credit card can.
Yeah, but not enough. Not well enough. Off enough that it doesn't hurt. But yeah, we were talking about the confirmed DNA sample that was found in Cumbria in the Lake District of a confirmed big cat.
Oh yeah, I remember you saying that to me after. Yeah,
a sheep that had been like ripped to shreds, and then they took some DNA, and then it's a confirmed big cat of the genus Panthera, which means that basically it was one of the big cats. So it had to either be like a leopard, a cheetah, a lion, a tiger. You know, all the big cats really, which is pretty cool. I reckon most likely a leopard personally. But on to today. I mean, weirdly, I've got a very, very similar sort of thing for you. And weird that I found out that I had these things twice in 2 weeks, really. I was, you know, on the internet, as you do, like over the weekend, and I came across an article that was a news article from a lady in Wales that had sent in saying that she'd been on holiday in the Forest of Dean, and this was interesting to me for several reasons, because I like the Forest of Dean. Me and my missus like the Forest of Dean. We've been there several times, and she said that she'd been walking her dog in an open pasture, and then she said she saw a herd of deer like running out of the forest and across the field into some woodland, and she says that it was being chased by a wolf. Right now, I'm not obviously saying that I think it was a wolf. I think it's most likely was, you know, some sort of like large dog, some sort of large wolf-like dog. Obviously, there's many breeds of dog which are like somewhat wolf-like, whether it's like German Shepherds, like Huskies. What's the other one I'm trying to think of off the top of my head? Can you think of it? It's a bit like a husky.
A Rottweiler? No.
Rottweiler. Yeah, no. It's like
an Akita or Akita. Akita, I think it's called. There's one that called an Akita.
Yeah, I'm sure that's quite wolf-like as well. But there's one that's real similar to a husky that I can't think of. If anybody listening, you'll know what I'm on about. Somebody listening will know what I'm on about.
Siberian something.
Siberian hound dog.
Yes.
No, I'm just making that up. But one thing I thought was interesting. I thought it was interesting for several reasons. Because then in the article, it then finished off the article with a guy who's like one of the top sort of wildlife experts for like the region, Forest of Dean region, and he said that weirdly over the last few years there have been lots of reported wolf sightings in the Forest of Dean, and I kid you not, right? I kid you not. And at the time, I remember I just sort of like, I think I made like a werewolf joke or something. But the last time me and Emma were in the Forest of Dean, we were driving like, for anybody that's been to the Forest of Dean, you know what it's like. It's like there's proper modern roads, but they're all just like going through like, you know, like forest on each side and everything, a lot of it. And we were sort of driving down one of those roads with sort of just like forest on each side. And I didn't see anything, but then Emma went like, oh, that was really weird. And I was like, what? And she was like, I just like looked to the left out the window, and she was like, there was like a freaking massive dog just like sat in the freaking woods, just like looking at the car as we were driving past. And I was like, really? And she was like, yeah. She was like, yeah, but it was just like weird because of how massive it was. And she was like, it almost looked like a wolf. And I remember at the time I was like, I mean, I assume there's probably just like somebody walking it in the woods and it's just like ran off a little bit. And then, and then I think I made some sort of like werewolf like joke, or was like, oh, imagine if it's a werewolf or something like that, you know. And then we just moved on from the conversation. And at the time, I don't think I would have even ever remembered that we even had that conversation if it wasn't for the fact that I read that news article the other day from that lady. And I think it's worth mentioning as well, obviously she had a dog, she was a dog owner, so it's not like she was like a numpty when it comes to dogs. You know, and she was like in the article she just said that all from her knowledge, the only thing she can think of was that it like looked at, you know, if it looks like a wolf, smells like a wolf, you know, it is a wolf sort of thing, you know. So yeah, I just thought that was really interesting. I don't personally believe that there's like a really small population of wolves in the Forest of Dean. What I reckon probably is likely is that maybe there was like a large wolf-like species of dog that maybe escaped their owner or escaped from somewhere. Or maybe an owner just chucked them out because maybe they couldn't handle having such a big dog. Or maybe even somebody got some illegal breed, which is like actually got like a high level of wolf DNA in it or something like that. But either way, I did think the fact that, and my missus saw that and then said that to me in the Forest of Dean, and we were there like last, I think like 6 months ago, maybe a bit longer, and then mixed that with all these reportings. And even at the end of the article, the guy that was like the wildlife expert, gave his like email out, and he was like, please, if anybody else has any more stories, like please. So he's obviously he's obviously interested enough like to like, you know, gather some more stories. I said to him, you should email him.
How big is a wolf?
Quite big, man.
Like compared to a dog, would you be able to tell that ain't no dog?
Yeah, you would definitely. Yeah, because I've heard from where I've listened to like a lot of like hunters, like, you know, podcasts in the past, like hunting podcasts. They say like a lot of people think that like, oh yeah, a wolf is maybe like similar to like a German Shepherd in size, maybe a bit bigger, but it's like it's not. It's quite a bit bigger.
That's so cool.
But the thing is, obviously, when you're watching it, say on like television, say like where say like grey wolves live in North America. They're side by side with like elk and bears and brown bears and like moose. Yeah. So relatively to those creatures, which are like freaking insanely massive mammals, you know, like obviously they don't seem so big. But if you saw one like next to us or next to a German Shepherd, you'd be like, oh, okay, that's like twice the size of a German Shepherd.
Yeah, like proper Game of Thrones style wolf.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, obviously, yeah, like. Not quite direwolf level. Obviously, they did actually exist back in the day. There was like a real type of animal.
Did they?
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't realise that.
Yeah, there was literally a direwolf.
That's cool.
I assume that's what George R.R. Martin based it on. Was like, yeah, there was actually a real type of wolf called a direwolf, which was basically more or less like modern day wolves, but just bigger. Which is really cool, isn't it? But yeah, I mean, either way, I think, you know, it's fascinating, like, you know, whether it's the story about the confirmed big cat DNA sample or these, like, sightings of, like, supposed wolves. It's interesting that even in, like, a relatively small country like the UK, like, you know, there might be freaking, you know, more going on in the woods than we think of. Obviously, you know, around the Forest of Dean and stuff nowadays, you know, it's, like, there's quite, like, a growing population of wild boar and stuff like that. Yeah, it's just, like... quite cool, isn't it? And
I like the idea of like wolves being introduced again and stuff. But remember when we were talking about it, you were saying like it could be quite devastating for like the farmers and things, you know. Like, but I like the idea of all these like wild animals being reintroduced to like
me too
our forests.
Yeah, I know I think there's some talk as well. I can't remember if there are any left in the wild in the UK. I don't think there are, but I think there's some talk about reintroducing like lynx as well, like Eurasian lynx, because they are native to the UK and they didn't die out that long ago. Like relatively speaking, but obviously, yeah, they were Eurasian lynx were native to the British Isles, and they're a beautiful cat as well. I don't know if either of you have ever seen one in the flesh. They've got like really short tails, which is quite random for a cat, isn't it? And they're sort of like grey with like black spots, But I've always thought because there's some I think in Exmoor Zoo, which is a really nice zoo for anyone that lives in sort of like the Somerset Devon area of the UK, but. Yeah, they're just like when you see them in person, they're just very like beautiful, majestic cats.
Yeah,
you know?
I almost imagine them a little bit like fox-like. Maybe not the mouth itself, but almost like the ears and the...
Yeah, I mean, obviously, without sort of pointing out the obvious, like bigger and more cat-like.
Yeah.
than a fox, you know what I mean? And obviously, yeah, like with like grey colouring with like black spots, but...
Yeah.
And with the different kind of big cat sightings all around the UK and that, it's nice to think, or it's like, it'd be interesting to think if there's more than one. Like there's different ones in different regions and stuff.
Yeah, different.
And because if there's just one, like, you know, there's no chance of them mating, but I like the idea, like they'll just be wandering and come across each other and... start mating and then bringing more back into the wild.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, because there is actually real talk, isn't there? I don't know if it's died down because of the fact that all the Scottish farmers kicked off, but there was talk about reintroducing wolves into Scotland. But I know, like, pretty much all the Scottish farmers...
No!
Well, because they said that there's, like, you know, the amount of money they'd have to invest in boundaries, like boundary protection, because there's, like, one thing keeping a fox out, But there's another
They'll be
thing.
going after the cattle and the sheep.
Keeping out like a frickin' pack of wolves is like a completely different thing altogether. Like a bit of chicken wire is not going to protect you from like a pack of wolves, you know. And they said they literally have to put like massive boundary fences and everything, and like the amount of money it would cost them. Obviously, some of these farmers have acres and acres of land,
And
to go all the way across the boundaries of their farmland would be insane. So I think the noise of it is like, we'll talk of it's died down. But
farming's not the most profitable thing as well. So having to invest all that. I remember seeing that on Yellowstone, and there was
Kevin Costner.
Yeah, there was this part of it on there where there was these wolves, and the wolves but they're all kind of tracked there because they're kind of endangered and stuff. So like they would be tracked coming onto onto their land and that, and like all the farmers were completely up in arms about it, but they couldn't touch them because they were like, you would get like the authorities on you and stuff like that because they're so protected and everything, you know.
Oh
so,
yeah,
damn,
yeah, for sure.
big issues.
Yeah, man.
Have either of you watched Clarkson's Farm?
I've seen like the first series of it. Like, the first
Doesn't Josh randomly love it?
Yeah, I really love it as well.
That's cool, man.
It's really, really good, but it really does bring to light just how hard farming is, and not just how hard it is, but how non-profitable it is. Like at the end of every season, they'll tally it up after the harvest, and they'll have been doing selling mushrooms that they've grown, or selling like blackberries, whatever it is on the farm. They'll sell everything and try and find money every way they can. Of course, it's Jeremy Clarkson as well, so he does make a lot of mistakes along the way, which is the fun of the show.
Yeah.
But what was I want to say the total they came to at the end of this year was something like 60,000 profit or something. But then all of that just goes straight on seeds and fertilizer for the next year. So really, they're making like a loss every single year. They're not,
really?
Or they're not like they're chasing their own tail. I think.
Okay,
obviously, he's got like a massive Amazon deal, and
he's
got other forms of income. But for the average farmer, man, it seems like a hard life.
Hard physical work as well, man.
Yeah,
it's not
and
like,
every day as well. It's a lot. It really is a lifestyle, not a job, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean, I even see it like from where I live. I can even like see, like the tractors in the fields behind my house sometimes going, and they'll, like sometimes they're like there at like early hours of the morning. Sorry, they'll be like there like 1-2 a.m. like doing stuff in the fields with their tractors and stuff like that, and it's like whoa. And then I assume they're up like fairly early again doing other jobs as well. So it's like fair play. It is like a very hard lifestyle, isn't it?
Do you think it's a bit of a dying field of work?
Well,
agriculture.
I hope not. I don't think there is any need for it to be, but I think at the moment, basically the government are doing our farmers a bit dirty, aren't they?
Yeah.
I think that's the general consensus as well.
Yeah.
Considering how hard they work, considering they supply, all of our like milk, and there's no reason why we can't get like a good percentage of our berries and vegetables from the UK. I mean, it's very easy to grow vegetables in the UK. One of the reasons why so many people tried to invade Britain over the frickin' thousands of years was because we have such
fertile.
Such good growing soil.
Yeah.
Because it was like, say for the Vikings, it was so much easier to grow vegetables here than it was in frickin' Scandinavia, where it was just too cold and icy all year round. Whereas here it's perfect. It's like bit of rain, bit of sun, sort of mild, gets a bit cold, not too cold, still like even in the winter there's a lot of like vegetables in the UK that you can still grow in the winter time, so
I always think it when you go to a place like Greece and the floor is just like rock solid dead, and you just couldn't grow anything there.
As much as I love Greece,
like wine olives,
and as much that's it, like olives, as much as like it's an amazing country, you're completely right, man. It's just like not the best, is it? Like, you'd have to do a lot more effort just to like water your plants all the time and stuff like that. Yeah, like so obviously things like tomatoes and olives do great. That's why they're such like a staple of the Mediterranean diet. And it's why obviously in this country, like a lot of people have to put tomatoes in like greenhouses to grow them. Although you can actually, they've bred like I think they're called all-weather tomatoes now. We actually have some on our patio.
Oh yeah,
we're just like growing tomatoes on our patio. You don't have to put them in a greenhouse or anything.
Nice.
That's pretty good, isn't it? They're like getting a pretty decent size yet. They haven't started going like red yet, but they're like getting like a pretty big size just from our patio, which is pretty cool. But moving on, pretty new cool discovery. We've talked in the past about Titanoboa, which was thought to be the largest snake that ever existed. Until now. Yeah. There's been a new discovery. A new snake, a partial spinal column was discovered from a snake that has been named Vasuki indicus. And from the spinal column, we can estimate that it was between 36 to 50 feet long, which is like staggeringly long, really, isn't it?
That is mental.
Like staggeringly long. And it's not just the length, as I've said in the past with a lot of these animals. Obviously, every like couple of feet longer something gets, it gets like quite substantially girthier as well, which is what, and I think you can really tell that when you see the size of like an 18-foot long crocodile next to like a 10-foot long crocodile, or a 18-foot long great white shark compared to a 12-foot long great white. Do you know what I mean? You're like, it's just like the size difference is, you'd think, oh, it's just a longer version of the other one. It's not. They're like almost every 6 foot longer it gets, it like doubles in width. So it ends up like when you see the largest like crocodiles and like great white sharks, they look almost like little submarines. It's like quite creepy. Yeah, so imagine how big that must have been.
It's almost like mind blowing that they could even move. Like the amount they must weigh. The amount of muscle must be packed into that to be able to slither along the ground and strike.
Just a lot of muscle, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, they it lived in Western India 37 million years ago in the Eocene epoch.
Quite a while ago.
Yeah, it was quite a while ago, like relatively speaking. But yeah, the Eocene epoch. A lot of the animals that we've talked about in the past. Do you remember when we talked about Terminator pig? Hell pig? The Entelodonts, as they were known, the biggest of which was Daeodon. Yeah, we talked about Daeodon, the Terminator pig / hell pig. That was from the Eocene period as well. And bit of interesting trivia for you. Eocene comes from the Greek word dawn. And it's named the Eocene epoch because it's considered the dawn of like the modern day fauna. So like the dawn of like most of the animals that live today, because it was during the Eocene epoch that like horses first evolved. Also like the first sort of like ancestors of elephants, bats, primates. So like our ancestors first evolved during the Eocene epoch. Epants, I must have said. And like rodents, things like that, all sort of evolved during the Eocene. So that's pretty cool, isn't it?
Was that one of the biggest times, like the biggest animals in that time as well, Eocene?
Yeah, so I said the Eocene, there would have been... So think about, all like the massive... we talked about a Paleoxodon, which was like the largest elephant that ever lived, and that might be the largest mammal, the largest land mammal that ever lived. There's one other contender, which is Paraceratherium, which is the relative of the modern day rhinos, which was a giant hornless rhino. We don't have enough fossils. We don't have enough fossils to like claim for sure which one was bigger. I think the general consensus is at the moment is that Paraceratherium was probably a little bit taller, but Paleoxodon was probably a bit heavier. But it's crazy, man. You see pictures of Paleoxodon, they do look like very much like modern day African bull elephants, but just like almost like twice.
You should get it up in a minute.
Should I get it up?
I'd like to see that.
That's what she said.
Hey.
But yeah, let's get it up. So
you should get it up in a minute.
Just a reminder to people that are listening on the radio, we do put this out on like Spotify and YouTube and anywhere else you can get podcasts as well. So if you want to see a Paleoxodon, Paleoxodon, we're going to get up a picture of it now for you. Say just the biggest elephant that we know of that ever lived. Woohoo! So there's a picture of a Paleoxodon compared to a human. And what's quite interesting is you see the Paleoxodon Namidicus, which was the largest ever Paleoxodon. But then weirdly, there was also a Paleoxodon falconeri, which was a little dwarf species of elephant, which was literally like the size of like a really big dog. Isn't that weird?
Oh, I'd like to see one of those.
That's cool, isn't it?
That's like so much smaller as well.
Yeah, I know, it's hilarious, isn't it? But yeah, that's Paleoxodon.
Whoa.
Yeah, so let me try and put shall I put like Paleoxodon size comparison with African bell elephant? That's the size comparison between a Paleoxodon and a Tyrannosaurus. So big enough to probably to
what
fight
was the
off
big
a T-Rex.
looking horse like thing as well, up a little bit?
Where's that?
Is
this
that
one?
Yeah, that.
That's the Paraceratherium. As you
yeah.
see here, it says largest land mammals in history. So we've got the two biggest, the Paraceratherium and the Paleoxodon Namidicus. So these are the two contenders. As you can see, we only have like limited sort of bones available, but one of these two was the biggest one of all time. And as I said, the Paraceratherium was actually far more closely related. It was actually technically a species of rhino. So a massive species of hornless rhino, whereas the Paleoxodon just looked essentially like a massive frickin' African elephant.
Would they be herbivorous?
Yeah. So they would have eaten the same thing things that like modern elephants eat. So look, this is pretty cool. We've got like a little graph here comparing like several things. So
you know, like the giant sloths we were talking about
oh
before?
yeah, Megatherium.
So have they been discovered as well? Or is it like?
When you say discovered,
like, or is it? Because I remember the caves where it was like these could have been dug out by these huge sloths and stuff. But I don't know if they've actually got bones of them and stuff.
Well, we know that they did exist at some point. There are some people, some zoologists and biologists that think that there might still be some living in like the deep parts of the Amazon jungle,
right,
but I don't think there's any evidence that there are. Do you know what I mean? They haven't found one alive. But yeah, really cool. I always think it's really cool as well. I know we spoke about this on the pod before, but I just think it's really cool that they're like that Colossal Labs in Texas are like actually bringing back to life woolly mammoths.
Yeah,
so cool, isn't it? Like so freaking cool. Oh, what's that? Is that Oh, I was just trying to. I thought I came across something pretty cool with them, but I think I Is this the size of a?
Long it's horns.
Oh yeah, so this is like a Paleoxodon compared to an African bush elephant. So essentially, it's just like a massive freaking elephant.
Like almost double the size head.
That's literally what it is. I mean, you know what I mean? It's a freaking massive elephant. That's what it is. But yeah, for anybody that's like listening that can't watch right now, when you get a moment, type in Paleoxodon Namidicus, find the largest elephant that ever lived. Or if you can't be bothered to remember that word, just type in largest elephant that ever lived. Or largest land mammals that ever lived, and you'll see pictures of both the Paraceratherium and the Paleoxodon Namidicus. Really, really cool stuff. But yeah, would have been mad living in the Eocene and just like the first primates, really cool like ancient looking horses. Yeah, those like hell pigs we were talking about. Yeah. There obviously would have also been like ancient big cats and all sorts of like ancient freaking big dogs and bears, like loads of freaking mental stuff going on. So that's just super cool, really, isn't it?
Man, I think they should just have like an island where we just dedicate it to like. Imagine having a different island for every old period of time. So you could bring back the Paraceratherium and all the other animals from that time period and put them on a little island.
Little ecosystem.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
It would be really cool.
Jurassic
Park,
literally,
just for like documentaries and stuff as well.
Yeah,
that would just be awesome to watch.
I think obviously the good thing about the woolly mammoth is because it lived in such cold climates, they've got ones that have literally been encased in ice for like 10,000 years. So even though they died like 10,000 years ago, like the meat and stuff is still preserved, which is where they can get such good DNA from it. But obviously a lot of these animals would have lived in like hotter climates. So like we just have nothing but fossils. And like fossils, although they kind of are the bones, they're more like by this point they've mineralized. They're like stones.
Rocks.
Yeah, they're like rocks.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? There's like well, I don't think there's any DNA left in them. There's like little to no DNA left in them. Or
that's
like
mad. I mean, like calcifies and goes that it loses the DNA. That's mad.
Yeah, and obviously it depends also what the animal died in. So like a lot of animals, or like the majority of animals that have ever lived, their bones haven't fossilized. You know, like if you say just like died now and you just like, out the back, you know, out the front here,
bones for a long
then
time.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? You'd go to bones, like all the animals would scavenge you, and then your bones would probably degrade as well. But that's why things like the tar pits in California, you know, like the tar pits in like why they're so like helpful to say, you know, like paleontologists and
what was that dude you were talking about who has that bit of land and was he you?
I think it was, yeah.
Or I might have seen it on like a podcast.
And he started digging.
But yeah, and
in
this
metal bones.
Yeah, in this small area of land that he owns, he just spends like millions of like he spends millions on excavating it all, and he was just chucking it into the rivers and that, and he was like, because there was so much of these bones that he was like digging up, that he was giving them to museums and things like that. But then he was also just he was like, right, if you go to this river at this place, you'll be able to find some crazy bones of like super old animals and everything. And then they went there, excavated them from the river and stuff. But it was just that he'd like chucked away because it was just on his land. But now he just dedicates his time to doing that. To
be honest, man, you could make like a freaking massive living from doing that. If you look at like how much like good quality fossils go for online, like it's insane.
But then he was saying that there was this like burn mark like through it all. So that thing about the what Graham Hancock talks about and stuff, and like that
maybe some big extinction event.
Almost in that area, like on his land, you can see it. It's like the thing, and then there's like this scorch mark in the soil, and then it's just normal again after that, and it sounds crazy.
Well, I was even thinking that like a little bit last week when me and Bullwinkle were talking about after we talked about the big cats. I was just saying to Bullwinkle, like, don't you think it's mad to think that like there would have actually been like native like big cats in the UK like a long time ago? Like obviously I'm talking like a long time ago. But like there would have literally been at one stage rhinos, hippos, woolly mammoths, big cats, hyenas, as well as like bears and wolves and stuff in the UK, and that's like mental. But
would
then
it have looked like similar climate and like the way that our kind of nature looks now? Would it have been or would it have been like a hotter atmosphere?
I think it was more like when it was like in the last ice age. But then it made me like wonder. I mean, there might have been ones like there might have been those animals living there, like you know what I mean, types of lions living there before, like the last Iron Age as well. Ice Age as well. I'm not sure, but it did make me wonder. You know, because we were looking at sort of like when most of these animals died out, and a lot of the ones say like lions, rhinos, like hyenas and stuff, seem to have gone extinct at the same time. And I was thinking when we were talking about that, like even that, in my opinion, it's like makes you think like, you know, they all sort of disappeared about the same time. You know, like the wolves and the bears managed to cling on, and I was like even thinking like, I wonder if that's because bears can hibernate, and maybe just because there's so many wolves and because they're such like good scavengers, because they're you know, because they're like us, they can eat anything. You know, like dogs can, like wolves can. You know, they're omnivorous like we are. They can eat sort of, so they're a bit more like, adaptable. Something like a lion, it's a lot more like it's niche. It needs a lot of like fresh meat to eat. If it doesn't, it might starve to death. And I know that like, and it's crazy as well. Apparently, like the success rate for like a lion hunting, even like in regular circumstances, is only actually about 30%. People think that they call it like king of the jungle, even though it doesn't live in the jungle. Do you know what I mean? But you just this idea that like lions just going around just like killing whatever they want. Like obviously all of the things they eat have evolved over millions of years to not be eaten. So it's actually like the success rate is quite low for them. You know, only about like 30%, I think.
And they gorge and it's like for 4 days again they won't eat or 5.
Yeah, they'll just eat until they literally almost like pass out. Yeah. And you see the lions just all lying around.
A few days of just chilling.
Yeah, in the shade and stuff, just like mouths just like surrounded with like blood and stuff. They're just like
fully gorged.
Yeah, like after you go out for like a fat meal with your mates or something. Yeah. But like, so my point being is if the success rate even in normal circumstances is about 30%, it doesn't really take a lot of like bad circumstances to suddenly bring that down to like 0%, I can imagine, you know? So yeah, I was just thinking that, you know, if you want to give like a little bit more, you know, evidence, if you want to call it that, to the sort of Graham Hancock, Randall Carlson hypothesis that there was like a big, as of yet, like scientifically undocumented extinction event that might have taken place around 10,000 years ago, that probably would coincide with when the big cats and like the mammoths and the rhinos and the hyenas went extinct in the UK.
That's so interesting.
You know, which I think is quite interesting, you know.
I was watching a video the other day that was almost like tied into the extinction events and like past civilizations, and it was talking about the early, like really early Egyptian like vases and vases.
Yeah,
is it vase?
We say vases. Americans say vases.
I'll go with vase.
You have to say vase.
Right,
otherwise all of our British listeners will be like cursing you.
I'll go with vase.
If my old man heard you say that, he'd be ragging on you right now. He'd be like, first you wore a German top, and now you're freaking saying vase.
Yeah. Hey, I'm multicultural, man. I'm multicultural.
A man of the people. Many places. Yeah, sure. A man of earth.
And it was talking about these vases that are like so accurate in the way that they've been carved over and over again. It's not like one vase that's been like ridiculous. I think they said it was something like 0.001 of an inch, like not flat on the top.
Where was this vase from?
In ancient Egypt.
Oh, right, yeah.
Like we're talking like probably around pyramid times, I would imagine. Yeah. Like way before the Cleopatra.
So how were they that accurate?
Exactly, and it was also like talking about the tools that we know they used back in the day, and they were using tools that were not as hardened as the materials that they were carving.
Yeah, so like how would you do that basically?
Exactly.
It's almost like impossible. Yeah, no, I completely agree.
And they're talking about like the Sphinx as well, and saying like the accuracy of the Sphinx is just beyond comprehension. Like it is completely symmetrical on both sides of the eyes. Like both sides. It is as if you took one half of the Sphinx's face and mirrored it.
Not just that, but they say that there's water erosion on the Sphinx, which could have only been caused by during a time period that at the moment history says the Sphinx hadn't been built by.
Whoa.
Do you know what I mean?
That's
so the last
crazy.
time Egypt had the amount of rainfall that would have take to cause that water erosion on the Sphinx. Like if it was only built like 4,000 years ago or 3,000 years ago, whatever, there wasn't enough rainfall then.
Yeah.
You know, which is another thing that makes you just sort of go,
Yeah.
You know?
Mate,
I'd love to go back in a time machine just to like almost like all these different places across the world, like to Britain and then to like to Greece and then to like Egypt and to like ancient Babylonia, or, like Babylon and like Samaria, and just almost like for a minute. I wouldn't want to linger too long because they'd probably just kill you. Because they'd be like, who the hell are you? Like this guy looks really freaking weird. Probably like Chuck Spears first, ask questions later. But if I could almost just like go and just had like a little like device with like a little clicker, and I could just like
see it,
or especially if I
Answer
could
the
go
world
but be like invisible, like, and just be invisible there, but just like taking what was going on, so you could actually see what tools they were using to actually build the things, and then just answer all these questions, and you'd be like,
see what the actual civilization was like, how they were living then and stuff, It's crazy. In the King's Chamber as well, there's just been some recent discoveries in the last few months of the actual inside of the chamber. Like all these pictures are like appearing on like the walls and stuff. Like the amount of times that people have been in there and kind of seen seen the rocks, seen the walls. No one's ever said anything. And literally, they discovered this whole, like, all the way around the King's Chamber. It's like an ancient, like we have our star signs, like Taurus and things like that. Like in the ancient Egyptian one, there was like the star sign, but then they had like 2 other ones underneath it as well. So it was like there was actually 3 like per month and stuff. And like they completely mapped this all the way around the pictures in the pyramid, and you can like see all these just images of and it's this different it's this like kind of old like calendar basically.
That's insane.
And like it's just mad that no one's ever seen it before, and actually on the sarcophagus in the middle and stuff, and they're seeing these shapes and this, and it's like why have people not seen that, but now they're completely mapping it out.
Is it just because obviously it's like hard to get light in there, and they just maybe initially were so like blown away by even being in there? Do you know what I mean? It's like you find out
so
all the
many
key information
thousands
first.
of people go through it, like like every year though. It's like crazy, like tours every day, and then like
it's
all
weird,
the.
man.
You know what I mean? And it's like, Robert Edward Grant, this guy, who's kind of discovered it. And, very interesting.
I think what's mental as well is that why are these the things that there are no explanation for? Like the things that we can't really comprehend how they would have even done it. Yeah. We seem to have information, whether it's on tablets or hieroglyphics, that almost detail how they would have done mundane things. Yeah. But the really mental stuff is the stuff that they decided they didn't want to keep as information. That seems like...
I mean, it's like they say though, isn't it? Like it's a matter of what do we have available to us, and they say, don't they, that like say civilization completely collapsed now. Well, we keep most of our information nowadays, or at least a lot of it, on the computer, right? So once like the hard drives are all like gone, all of that's gone. So now you only have our written text. Yeah. What could you get? Bearing in mind also that our written text, like paper, is degradable, especially when you get things like weather damage, water damage, blah 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 blah, heat damage makes the ink fade, right? So you would be left, say our civilization went down today, you'd be left with whatever books survived 3,000, 4,000 years from now, maybe more, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 years from now, and then what could you get? What could you decipher from the books that were left, from the books that were in good enough condition? Do you know what I mean? Very, very hard for our sort of like ancestors 6,000 years from now, 5,000 years from now. It'd be actually very hard for them to like get everything, even just to say decipher at first what was the difference, say, between something like the Bible and Lord of the Rings. Do you know what I mean? You'd have to figure out, right, okay, well what are they saying is fiction and what are they saying is real? Just even deciphering that, is quite hard, let alone knowing exactly how we lived in these times. At the end of the day, what it is, it's almost like CSI. It's like crime scene investigation. That's what archaeologists basically do with history. It's, okay, let's look at the evidence we have for the buildings they lived in. Okay, well, they lived in these sort of buildings, so they must have been had masonry, or they must have had carpentry, and probably both. Okay, well, we know that You know, they had this, that. You know, maybe you could find like a stool sample of a man that lived at the time. You can analyse the poo, like they did for that big, massive, giant Viking turd that was found in York, and they can figure out what that person was eating at the time. If it's obviously like a lot of farmed goods, they know that they were farming at the time, farming grains and things like that. Do you know what I mean? Or were they more like hunting? Was it all just like meat and fruit? In which case, they were probably living a more hunter-gatherer lifestyle. So, you know, so it's like it's almost like CSI, isn't it? It's like I said, it's just and also then, which is why I say civilizations like the Romans are so handy, is because obviously they did write down so much. But I think also it's worth remembering that even though the Romans lived 2,000 years ago, of all the ancient civilizations, they are like the newest.
Yeah.
They are like the newest. Do you know what I mean? So they are the latest ones. We know that things like the Library of Alexandria had apparently the biggest library ever in history, and it was a legal requirement for every single ship that came through the docks of Alexandria in Egypt that every book had to be handed over to the Library of Alexandria. And then while the people of that boat were staying in Alexandria, copies would be made of the book, and then they would have their original books handed back to them when they left. But yeah, the amount of knowledge that unfortunately was lost when the Library of Alexandria went down, like that is probably, in my opinion, probably one of the one most important things that's like lost to history. If that one building had survived, we would probably know so much more about the Greeks, like the Egyptians, and all the other, you know, the Babylonians, like the Sumerians, like everything. We would know, because they were just like, it was like the hub of the world at the time, you know, and they would have had all of the key information. So it's just a real shame, you know.
There's only so long that information can be saved with word of mouth, isn't there?
Yeah.
Well, that's why like the Sumerian tablets are like so important as well. Like that is literally carved into stone, and like the oldest kind of thing we have of text of human beings and stuff is like literally the Sumerian tablets. And that makes me think, like, because it's such a crazy story with like the Anunnaki and Elil and Enki, and the way that they say that there was like this hybridization going between the gods and the humans and stuff, and like and part of those tablets make the Old Testament in the Bible and stuff like that, like that, you know, as they're passed on through history and that. And it's like, it's such a crazy story that like, you know, you think of like they obviously believed it enough to think that there was truth to it, to actually carve it into stone, and how long that would have actually taken, and what a big task that would have been with the way that they had to do that, like back in the day and stuff. It's like, what they obviously believed it, so it's just like that. Is there some like truth in like what they're kind of saying in those tablets? And that's pretty mental.
And also like two other points as well. Like as I was saying about like the Romans being almost like the most recent of what we consider like the ancient civilizations. Like they lived 2,000 years ago, but we know a lot about Roman civilizations. So we know about all the amazing things that they did, which seem almost like spinny to us today. So we know that they had like really good sewer systems, which in my opinion is like a very advanced thing to have.
Underfloor heating as well, didn't they?
Underfloor heating, heated swimming pools, heated
pizza ovens.
Pizza ovens, make pinnacle of civilization. Literally, the oldest recorded pizza is from a building on Pompeii. So they ate pizzas back in ancient Rome. Imagine just chilling out in Rome, just eating like a freaking nice margarita or like pepperoni. But so we know that they had cement, better than modern day cement. We still haven't figured out exactly how the Romans, mixed their cement, but we knew that it was so freaking good that it could harden underwater. Yeah. Right? So that's insane. So they had several things, like to this day, which are actually better than our modern peak civilization. Not just that, but when you then mix with the fact that we know that Homo sapiens first evolved as we are now between 200 and 300,000 years ago, and really, even our very earliest history, so say like Göbekli Tepe, is dated around 10,000 years ago. Like, there's still anywhere between 190 to 290,000 years of just like complete question mark. And that question mark is just insanely fascinating. And when you add in all of the other question marks, whether it was you saying about like, you know, the things that have been made, but you know, it's harder than the tools they have, or we were talking about the Sphinx and the water erosion and the symmetrical, you know, all of that stuff. It's like, it's just this fascinating mystery. And don't get me wrong, like, to be fair, to be fair to the skeptics, you know, at the end of the day, there's a certain type of people, they only care about what can be documented by fact. And I get that, so I respect that. So, do you know what I mean? They're saying, like, well, there's no evidence for any civilization before this, So we can't say that was the case, and I do sort of get that, but I think that, you know, just like a lot of things in life, you know, I think that yes, it's good to say like, yes, right now we cannot claim that we know sort of more than obviously we do, but there is just that such massive 190 to 290,000 period where it was like, what were humans doing? Because there was surely there was only like so long that they were like running around with loincloths, like, you know, throwing spears.
And we also know how we can't like explain some of the things that are there.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly,
like there's some kind of technology.
That's kind of my point. Yeah,
and it's like that's crazy. Like those ones in Peru as well. Like, remember when we did that like Mystery Mondays ages ago, and it was like the Sacsayhuaman.
Oh, how could I forget?
And those stones, and they were saying literally you would have had to heat for the stone to get into that chemical state that's like on the front of the stone or whatever. Like,
burnt,
it would have to go above 3,000 degrees
to make it malleable.
To make it them go into the shape and stuff. It's like it was called a thing. I can't remember what the thing was. And it was like it's been proven that has actually happened to the stones. But how did they do it? Like how was that? How was that even possible? Like, was it a huge furnace that is like bigger than a mansion, or like, you know?
Yeah, and also just to add another thing onto that is obviously we're like a very strange mixture of like, we are very intelligent, but we're also very simple, and our brain tries to make us think. Bless you, Bullwinkle.
Thank you.
Our brain tries to make us think in general terms because it's easiest for us to think that, right? So if I said to you guys, what was life like on the planet in like 1200 AD, you would probably try and give me a very general answer, and because, as I said, because our brain likes to think in general terms. But the fact of the matter is, if say in 800 years from now somebody said, well, what was life like living in 2024, well, like, for who? We live in right now we have cameras on, we've got these PC monitors in front of us, we've got these weird phones on us. There are still tribes in Africa and tribes in the Amazon that still literally hunt with bows and arrows, right? And spears, right? So like, what's life like for who? That's my point, right? So say going back to all these prehistory times, right? It's not just a matter of guesswork, it's a matter of, well, where are you digging? Yeah. Because you might dig in one place and there might be like, okay, well, there is rudimentary evidence here that there was like a hunter-gatherer like society that lived in frickin' Hungary, for example, 6,000 years ago. That doesn't mean that somebody in frickin' China or somebody in modern day Africa or somebody in modern day frickin' like North America would have been living the same as that. Do you know what I mean? But I think the generalist, you know what I mean, you might bring that to think in a general way, so it's almost like you like to think that maybe everybody on the earth was like in the same technological advancement, but obviously no, it could be radically different. But as it is today, you have people literally like the frickin' first Neuralink guy is there, literally got a Neuralink chip that you were telling me about, Bullwinkle.
Got his aimbot in his head.
Yeah, so it's like this guy that was paralysed and now can move because of Neuralink.
I remember I watched the video on that. You know? Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
You've got you've got men that have walked on the moon. We've got frickin' satellites that have left the Milky Way galaxy. But then on the other hand, you've still got tribes in Africa and frickin' Amazon that still literally hunt with bows and arrows. Yeah. And literally literally have to, if they're not hunting with bows and arrows, they're like chopping frickin' honeycombs out of trees with like bees frickin' stinging them just to get some honey. Do you know what I mean?
And the world's like a big place as well. Like, look at all that stuff that's still underground. Like, I remember even seeing the Göbekli Tepe. They're like, this goes on for like miles radius. So there's lots of things all still underneath it. And then all of the stuff we said as well about like the rainforests and you know, everything that there's like huge cities that we just don't know about. And like, the oldest like tablets we have are like the Sumerian tablets and that, but like they're not, the ones that we have aren't complete and there's bits missing from them and stuff. So it's like, is there another copy that is completely complete, like, you know, and completely stuff, or is there ones that are older than that, like older than like however many thousands of years that is, that just haven't been pulled out yet?
It wasn't until we found the Rosetta Stone that people could even like understand hieroglyphs, because it was like I'm trying to think off the top of my head, wasn't it like the Rosetta Stone, wasn't it like it could translate hieroglyphs to Greek, and then because we knew how to translate ancient Greek to English, we then knew how to translate ancient hieroglyphs. But that was like a godsend. They found that, I'm pretty sure, in the sea, didn't they? They found it like in the ocean.
I just remember hearing about it though.
I'm pretty sure the Rosetta Stone is in the British Museum in London. I'm pretty sure.
Rosetta Stone.
So I think you can
I didn't even
go
know
to
it was a thing. I've heard of it, but I thought it was like an ancient mystery that wasn't actually discovered.
No, mate, I'm pretty sure. Literally, you can go to the British Museum.
I didn't realise that was how they translated it.
I would love to know. I think one of my biggest questions throughout history, or not throughout history, but in the future, would be: let's say civilization collapsed now, right? How long would it take for a city like London, New York, Dubai, whatever, like a big first world built up city? How long would it take for there to be no trace of that, just through, degradation, just nature itself and time passing?
I think it's like impossible for us to say. But I did watch an amazing program once, and I wish I remembered the name of it, because I remember I had so much fun watching it, and that was the premise of the show. It was like a 10-part documentary series that I watched with my mum when I was younger, and it was like, and it wasn't like what was important wasn't why the humans disappeared. The premise of the show was, if humans literally clicked your fingers and every human on the planet was gone, how long would it take for nature to reclaim Earth? And it was fascinating. Honestly, it was fascinating. And I think it was like after, I can't remember exactly, but it was like nature started reclaiming things like quicker than you probably think.
Well, the thing is, Chernobyl, like that looks pretty mental now. That's getting pretty reclaimed by nature, because so many people haven't been living there so long.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's crazy.
Full like classrooms that have just got vines through the classroom and that, and I
almost wonder how long it would take for those buildings to fully collapse and just there be no trace of it, because that's almost like the situation we've got with a lot of these ancient civilizations. If whether they are there or not. If they are and had these big built-up cities in these places, why is there no trace of them now?
And how far underground are they?
Yeah, exactly. How long ago would that have actually been?
Well, for all you know, there might be something like under this freaking building.
True.
Because that's the thing. Do you know what I mean? It's like.
How deep is it into the earth? How many layers down? You know?
It's like, unless you start digging, you're not really going to know. And how far are you willing to dig?
And that's what makes some of the real ancient monuments so impressive, is because they can outlive a lot of cities almost, and things with that, the way that they've been built. We don't build things like that anymore.
Yeah, I found out some stuff about the Rosetta Stone. So it is the Rosetta Stone is in the British Museum. Like I thought it was. It says the Rosetta Stone is one of the most famous objects in the British Museum. But what is it? The stone is broken part of a bigger stone slab. It has messages carved into it, written in 3 types of writing. It was an important clue that helped experts learn to read Egyptian hieroglyphs. Why is it important? The writing on the stone is an official message called a decree about the King Ptolemy V, who lived between 204 to 181 BC. The decree was copied onto large stone slabs called stelae, which were put in every temple in Egypt. It says that the priests of the temple in Memphis in Egypt supported the king. Imagine if they meant Memphis and they were talking about Elvis. The Rosetta Stone is one of these copies, so not particularly important in its own right. The important thing for us is that the decree is inscribed 3 times in hieroglyphs, Demotic, the cursive Egyptian script used for daily purposes, meaning language of the people, and ancient Greek, the language of the administration. The rulers of Egypt at this point were Greco-Macedonian after the Alexander the Great's conquest. Of course, we know that the Ptolemy dynasty, the most famous of which, Cleopatra, were actually Greek, of Greek descent more than actually Egyptian. The Rosetta Stone was found broken and incomplete. It features 14 lines of hieroglyphic script. Yeah, so basically it was what we thought. Yeah, so basically we knew how to translate ancient Greek,
and they did that from a part of the stone, not all of it as well. That's pretty cool.
So you can see that's what's in the British Museum, and that's what apparently it would have looked like. There's probably 2/3 of it for people that are just listening and not seeing. There's probably about 2/3 of it is in the British Museum. Obviously, the stele would have looked a little bit more complete and impressive back in the day. Had some cool pictures at the top and stuff like that.
It's good that they could still use that to get every bit of hieroglyph.
Do you know what? I don't know if I've ever been to the British Museum. I've been to the Natural History Museum.
Yeah, me too.
Several times.
I don't think I've been to the British Museum either.
But I don't really know why I haven't.
Been to the Science Museum next to the Natural History Museum as well. There's there's a. Have you seen that?
I probably have been.
The Natural History Museum, and then right next to that is a big Science Museum as well.
Oh, right. I don't know.
Yeah, I've been.
Maybe I just went to it and I thought it was a part of the Natural History Museum. I don't know. I've been to the Imperial War Museum. That was pretty cool. But yeah, I don't actually think I've ever been to the British Museum. I think the British Museum is like, it's the one that's got all say like a lot of ancient Greek artifacts and Egyptian artifacts, things like that. I think I'm pretty sure Greece, didn't they get like a bit aggy like a couple of years ago because they said that they wanted some of their things back that like the British Empire took out of like Athens and stuff. But then I think some other people argued that like, well, actually, for the Greeks, the best thing it could have done is like being kept in the British Museum because it's like under climate control and it's like safe there. Whereas a lot of the stuff in Greece that was like super precious has just like fell to ruin or been like vandalized and stuff like that. So I mean you can see both points, can't you? Really?
I've never been to the Vatican either, but apparently like what they have there is insane.
I went there recently, man.
Really?
That was
like,
cool.
Like kind of ancient Egyptian stuff.
Yeah. How long? Can you remember how long ago I was saying some of the stuff where like some of they had like statues. I'm going to see if I can find like the years that they had, but I think it was going back to like 8,000 BC and stuff like that of like actual, Egyptian statues of their gods and their pharaohs.
Yeah, and apparently there's a lot of stuff at the Vatican that just isn't like viewable to the public, like
they've
ancient
got
texts and
archives,
also like text, but also like archaeological pieces.
They've got like room after room of like massively long rooms that are just archives, and in them there's like ancient artwork that like is not accessible to the public, ancient bits of jewelry, statues, like pretty much anything that you can think of that you would consider valuable and things like that.
It was quite cool seeing like an Egyptian mummy in there. They had like an actual mummy on display.
That's pretty
just
cool,
like in its whole, it looked mummified, sat in his box, he was chilling. But that's a pretty crazy thing to see.
Chilling.
Yeah.
So would that have been like the Crusades and stuff, like everything
not the Crusades,
bringing back to the church?
Not the Crusades, because the Crusades was more obviously the Crusades. What you would know as the Crusades was the battle between European Christians against more like the Islamic, like Saladin and his like Islamic forces in the Middle East. But the reason why the European forces started getting up in arms is because there was an Islamic expansion which was creeping ever further west. And this was really concerning to all the European countries that live on the eastern border. So they sort of just started making like a religious, in response to this, so like a religious, pushback, and then all the frickin' like
Knights Templar
Christian armies in like France, Germany, Britain, all went up. Obviously the Knights Templar are obviously some of the most famous crusaders. There were lots of different like sects. Not sex. Sects, of like obviously knights. The Knights Templar being the most famous ones, but they went to the Middle East to have that battle. But I mean, you're right in the fact that obviously the Vatican is a very Christian place. But when did the Vatican break off as its own country? Should we have a look?
That'd be a great question.
Because I don't know, because it's like the smallest country in the world, isn't it? The Vatican.
It is indeed.
A bit like Wales is the smallest city in England. I mean, not quite as epic, but. Shout out Wells, lovely little place, obviously just round the corner from us. Vatican. I didn't mean to put Vatican Stone. The Vatican. Let's find out about the Vatican. Obviously, home seat of the Pope. Vatican City. Vatican City, a city-state surrounded by Rome, Italy, is the headquarters of the Roman Catholic Church. It's home to the Pope and a trove of iconic art and architecture. Its Vatican museums house ancient Roman sculptures such as the famed Laocoon and his sons, as well as Renaissance frescoes in the Raphael rooms and the Sistine Chapel, famous for Michelangelo's ceiling. Population of only 825. Oh, it says it's only 95 years old. So Vatican City's only 95 years old. That's pretty crazy, isn't it?
I wonder how it got all stuff. This is crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I guess it would have been around for a lot longer, but it probably just gained independence.
I think it would have probably been like the Romans, man. When the Romans were like conquering the world, they would have been bringing a lot of stuff back to Rome. And then obviously as time went on, like even after like the fall of the Roman Empire, obviously Rome has always been like the cultural hub. Like obviously even say, even if you say watch like say like Vikings or like The Last Kingdom, obviously I'm not saying that's 100% historically accurate.
It's hot, man.
Yeah. Nah, it's just me. But you know, it shows that like the Saxons, even because they were Christian by that point, used to go on pilgrimages to Rome. So even though the Roman Empire had long since died, Rome was still considered probably the most important place in Europe. And obviously they still had a lot of leftover stuff that the Romans had gone throughout Europe, obviously Egypt, several other places, and they had all throughout the Mediterranean and Europe and North Africa, and they had just taken a lot of the most valuable stuff and taken it back to Rome. And obviously a lot of it was just kept under lock and key. So I think a lot of it has just been there to this day, you know. So it was Roman armies that probably brought them back.
The map room was really cool. They had like a room or like a corridor that was like just had all these ancient maps, like all like down the whole corridor and up the walls and on the ceiling, and that was really cool. That was cool because they were like old maps as well. So you imagine the terrains would have been way different, and I think the main thing you almost take away from like going there is almost like understanding why we have so much knowledge that we do now, you know, which I thought was quite cool to experience. Yeah,
pretty cool. I mean, obviously I don't want to look into it right now because I don't want to just like be sat in silence researching while we're doing the pod. But yeah, I'll have to like look into what was the idea of why the Vatican even like became its own little country. Do you know what I mean? Like what in their eyes was the purpose of it? Like, do you reckon like some pope wanted it or something?
Yeah, maybe Rome wasn't considered holy enough.
Or like Italy by that point.
Yeah.
Because like even Italy
to become a law unto themselves.
Yeah. Because like even like Italy as it is now is like a fairly recent country, isn't it? Like obviously we consider Italy to be like, you know, well, it's Italy, isn't it? But do you know what I mean? It's not like Italy as it is now hasn't been Italy as it is now for like that long. It's funny, isn't it? Because like even like say countries like Germany, like during the Napoleonic Wars, it was like known as like Prussia.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You know, it's so funny, isn't it? Like, yeah, interesting. How times can change like, relatively quickly, you know?
Have you heard of the Black Pope? Jen?
No. Who's the Black Pope?
I was watching something.
Is he a pimp?
No, like actual like a pope that's like has black robes and that like has to take this decree. That's
royal decree,
like, or you know, like say something about becoming like the Black Pope, and they put in about the Black Pope. Apparently, he like signs off wars and stuff. He's the one who's like in charge of like the Vatican signing off like countries going to war and that. And it's like that sounded a bit mental.
Okay, that sounds mental.
Oh man, that sounds crazy. The Superior General of the Society of Jesus.
Oh. I don't know what that is.
Superior General of the Society of Jesus is the leader of the Society of Jesus, the Catholic religious order known as the Jesuits. He is generally addressed as Father General. The position sometimes carries the nickname the Black Pope because of his responsibility for the largest male religious order, in contrast with the white garb of the Pope. The 31st and current Superior General is Fr. Arturo Souza, elected by the 36th General Congregation on the 14th of October 2016. Mate, never heard of that before. What the hell is the Society of Jesus? I thought that was Christianity.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I thought that was
like the Bene Gesserit from Dune, which are like the evil witches that control everything through like religion and stuff.
Damn.
It says the powers given to the Superior General or the Black Pope is invested. The Superior General is invested with governing power over all members of the society, but customarily leads through provincial superiors under him. Such power follows from the religious vows that bind members to community life, as in other religious orders. All right.
Damn, Sam.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'll have to look into that more. It seems like a lot of them. It's funny how, like, you know, you think about typically, obviously, say like Rome and things like that, and you think about like Italy, obviously, because Rome is in modern day Italy. But a lot of like popes throughout history have been Spanish. Like some of the most famous ones, the Borgias were Spanish, and it's saying here that like the first three superior generals or black popes were all Spanish as well. 3 Spaniards in a row, and then a Belgian, and then a lot of Italians after that, a German, Belgian, Spaniard again. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a lot of those countries though, like Spain and Italy. There's a lot of crossover. I mean, they are both have what you consider Latin languages. You know, like Romanian, Italian, Portuguese, Spanish, French. They're all like considered Latin descended languages.
I suppose if the Spanish almost have a hierarchy in that, in the religion, then they would vote themselves in to be the next pope. Because I remember watching a video about how the pope actually becomes elected, like once another pope dies, and it's like the top rank of the pope, like vote one of them amongst them, and then like the next rung votes one of them to go to the rung higher. So you could imagine the Spanish people almost like voting there.
Just keep it in the family.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Some more information here on the Black Pope. This is a Catholic Answers website, which is quite interesting. It says, question, I heard that the Vatican is run by an individual called the Black Pope who holds all the real power. What do you say to that? And it says, answer. There is a person sometimes called the Black Pope, but his existence is not a secret, and he does not have anywhere near as much power as the real Pope. The Black Pope is a nickname given to the Father General of the Society of Jesus. When the Jesuits were the most prestigious, influential missionary order in the world, the people of Rome began to speak jokingly of their head as the second Pope. They called him the Black Pope, because he wore the Jesuits' black clerical garb, in contrast to the real Pope, who wore white and became known as the White Pope. The Black Pope does not have authority over anyone but Jesuits. Sometimes people point to him as evidence of a conspiracy in the Vatican, but what they really have is a garbled understanding of a Catholic in-joke.
I love that, a garbled understanding.
I always think it's mental when you click off a page and that mental inception thing happens. Whoa! All right. Do you want to listen to some Quickfire facts?
Oh yeah, man! It's been a long time.
I've got some freaking great Quickfire facts as well this week because they're Quickfire bull facts.
Ooh.
That's right, Quickfire facts about your bulls. And if you're a girl, they're not about your bulls, but just about men's bulls. Right, so let me get up some facts about people's bulls, everyone. Some of these facts are a bit more well-known. Some of them I already knew, but I have to say the majority of them I didn't. So we're going to start with some more well-known ones, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty, okay? The nitty-gritty of the bull action. To start off, I think this is a pretty well-known one. Testicles are about 2 degrees Celsius lower in temperature than the rest of your body. And apparently that is because it's a more optimum temperature for sperm to develop and grow. So if your sperm got too hot, they wouldn't be able to like function properly. So it's too hot inside our body. Yes, nicely demonstrated there by Drew Swift the Bear. So yeah, they need to be a little bit colder on the outside of our body. Interestingly though, did you know that a lot of mammals, including even massive mammals that you would think of to be like struggle to stay cooler a lot more than us, like elephants, don't have balls on the outside of their bodies, and I'm pretty sure that their balls are like situated like somewhere near their kidneys in their bodies. That's weird.
By
isn't
their
it?
kidneys.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's a bit weird.
Isn't it? Another interesting fact, I didn't know this. Apparently, it takes about 74 days for your sperm cells to mature. Right. The immature cells get the blood and nutrients they need in the tubules of your balls, and from there they're pushed along to the epididymis, which should be like a name for like a black or goth doom metal band, I think.
Epididymis.
And then it would just be extra funny that it actually meant like you know, which is the tube.
Like peristalsis.
Well, epididymis is
swallowing.
Yeah. Epididymis is the tube that runs along the backside of your testicle and then connects to what's known as the vas deferens, which is the tube which basically lets the sperm come out of your penis. So it's the tube that
rub my vas deferens.
Yeah, so rub my vas deferens. Yeah, it's essentially the tube that goes from your balls to your penis, and then lets you ejaculate sperm. Hell yeah, it is. Hell yeah, it is.
Feels good.
This is a cool fact. I remember hearing that. I knew that they were working overtime, our testes, but this is mad actually to hear how many sperm do you reckon your balls can produce every day? If you had to both take a guess.
2 million.
1 million.
200 million.
200 million.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah,
that's a lot of spermies.
They manufacture around 200 million sperm per day for a healthy young male.
That's crazy.
That's insane.
The testicles also obviously produce androgens, which are basically male hormones, primarily the most famous of which is testosterone, which is obviously the reason why men in general tend to be like taller, physically stronger and hairier than women. It's all to do with the androgens.
Does sperm turn into something else then when it's not used? Say you like storing it up
goblins.
For a bit. Like, do you know what I mean though? Like if it's producing 200 million per day.
No, I think it stores it up, baby. Well, let's face it.
Your balls were literally like...
Yeah, but Drew, there's not many men on the planet that can go too long. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying, man?
Gotta keep the waterworks, you know.
Yeah, which is why you never have to wait too long until there's more.
But there's some people, no fat, you know.
Oh, I did,
probably lasted a few weeks at least.
Mate, I reckon I lasted about a year.
Yeah, there you go. Look. So what happens to all that 200 million
that's
per
where
day?
phlegm comes from.
I felt very healthy at the time, and I was in great shape.
Yeah.
I reckon maybe it was because
Life force, man.
Maybe it was because, maybe one of the reasons I was in one of the best shapes ever in that time, and probably one of the strongest I've ever been, was because it was during the no-fap era. Maybe it was just because, it said like the two biggest, it said like the two main like functions is to produce sperm, but also to like develop androgens. Maybe because my body didn't have to work. Maybe because it had such an abundance, and it was like, okay, you've got enough. We'll turn off the tap for a minute, the sperm tap.
So do you reckon that's what happens? It just stops happening.
I don't know.
Like,
but this is my hypothesis that it had loads of time to put into my androgens.
Yeah.
So then maybe that's why I was like really really fit and healthy at the time. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. Now I've just got a dad bod. What does that say?
Bring back the no fat.
I'm still really fit under the dad bod though. All right, just want to point out. Okay. So what else? Let's think about some weird stuff people used to believe about balls.
Balls.
No, go on.
Yeah, like dogs have like 2 sets of balls. You ever notice that?
No.
What?
Oh,
So they have 4
Rupert
testicles.
was lying on his back the other
Are you sure
day.
he hasn't just got a mutation?
Mate, it's weird because I saw it in Sav's new dog as well, and I was like, I thought, is it only Rupert? And literally, if he's
I like how you've been like,
if he's lying, he's got a real nice big set of chestnuts, that are just like dangling on the outside and that.
Yeah.
Lovely set of soft chestnuts,
right?
And like he's on his back.
Do you tickle him?
Got a bit. I do tickle him every now and again. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. They're like silk, mate.
Right.
But like and then like, so he gets a boner sometimes, like every living
touch
thing.
That too?
No, but I could see these like 2 like say about halfway down the shaft, almost like these they turn into balls. So like imagine like shaft and then balls,
right?
And then the actual bollocks are like further down. So there's like 2 sets. There's like a hard set that are like almost like glands or something, but they just look like bollocks, like are really hard when he's got a boner. And then at the back, he's got his actual
faux
set
balls.
of balls as well.
He's got the faux balls.
So it's like, but then and I looked it up, and it's something, but it looks like they've got like 2 sets of bollocks.
When you looked it up, what did it say?
I think it was something like their glands or something, but they look exactly like bollocks. They look like there's some really hard bollocks there, and then his actual bollocks.
It's funny how much you said bollocks in the last like 2 minutes.
And then Odin, like Sav's new dog, was like,
I thought you were then going to just like bring in mythology. No, and then Odin, the god of the Vikings,
that's
just came to me in a vision, and he said, "Yes, Drew, they don't actually have 2 sets of bollocks. It's actually
he had the same thing, and I was like, "Oh, it's a thing. It's an actual thing.
Right,
it's a biological thing."
Right. So just to clear this up to everyone that also thinks that, so dogs look like they might have 2 sets of balls.
It's weird, man.
But apparently one of the sets is glands.
Maybe I don't know.
Maybe
I need to look it up.
Pray to Odin.
Pray to Odin,
and you will find out. But yeah, we've got some more bull facts. So don't worry, people. We've barely skimmed the surface on these bull facts. Right. So some weird stuff that people used to believe about bulls back in the day. In the past, people used to think that the right testicle sperm made boys and the left testicle made girls.
Right dangles lower.
Yeah, and I just want to preface this by saying I'm a big fan of Aristotle, legend, a lot of those great philosophers, massive fan of. But this is a bit silly. In 330 BC, Aristotle prescribed tying off the left testicle for men who wanted to have a boy. And in the Middle Ages, so much later, men would literally have their entire left testicle removed.
Imagine how many people have done this as well.
Imagine chopping your ball off just because, and then you just have a girl anyway, and you'd be like, no. I mean, as a father of a girl, obviously it's real nice having a daughter. But I mean, I guess it's because, don't get me wrong, there is this with me as well. Like, I'd like to have a boy so that your lineage is going to carry on. That's really important, isn't it? I think there's this thing like inside men, or like most men anyway, that you want that to happen.
Yeah.
You want your name to, and because you know that all of your ancestors up until this point
have got to you for carrying
if they didn't have a male to make the next generation, like you wouldn't even be here. So you almost want to like honour your ancestors, pass on the torch to your son. But
I felt the pressure of that because I was the only one who could with the Armstrong name out of all of our family, cousins and everything.
That's it. And I think it's like it's not anything obviously to do with like liking a son more than a daughter, because I would but it's just it's literally just that family name thing, So men would even have them removed, their left testicle removed in the Middle Ages. Nowadays, we know, of course, that both testicles produce the same sperm, and our chaps are spared that rather than brutal and effective treatment. On to our next fact. Did Hitler really have one bull? Back during World War II, there was...
Not heard of that one.
Have you not?
No.
Did they say this about Napoleon as well?
No, they said he was really short.
Right.
So I do you know what I love?
Similar but different.
I love like British comedy that even through like World War II and the Napoleonic times, I was like, right, what should we do about like the leader of the opposition? Let's just ridicule him.
Yeah.
Right. So the British forces, the British public made up a song called "Hitler Has Only Got One Bull," and I can even sing it to you because my dad used to sing it to me when I was little. Right?
My favourites.
It's like Hitler. He only had one bull, the other is in the Albert Hall. His mother, the dirty bugger, she cut it off when he was small. So that's the song.
Nice.
And during the Second World War, it used to infuriate Hitler that he got reports that like the British population used to like walk around singing this daily, and it was almost like ridiculing him. But did Hitler actually only have one bull, or was it purely ridicule? So the famous wartime song, Hitler Only Has One Bull, there's common speculation that one testicle was lost to shrapnel during the First World War. His childhood doctor denied this, telling Americans that his genitals were completely normal. However, his doctor was lying. Records were unearthed in recent years which showed a medical exam in 1923 recorded with what's known as right side cryptorchidism, which means he had an undescended right testicle. That is when sometimes men have an issue where in developing during puberty their balls don't fully drop and one essentially stays inside the body. So effectively it would have seemed like if say a young lady or man, if he swung that way, felt his ball bag back in the day, it would have felt like he would have only had one ball. So there we go. So it turns out that our mockery was correct. He did sort of only have one bull, so take that, Hitler. And you're right. So there was also British propaganda. Apparently this was a bit more made up, that people used to
he was like normal height.
They said that he was like 5'2" or something, like a ridiculously small
Danny
height.
DeVito.
Yeah. Well, I think even like shorter, and like a lot of the pictures of Napoleon that were done by British people were made out that he was like ridiculously short and fat.
It's really funny that that's now become like almost an accepted fact.
Yeah,
that he just was really short because he lost in the end.
Well, they say, don't they? Like if you tell a lie enough to enough people will eventually accept it as fact. Which is why you have to be really careful with like propaganda in the modern world. And
history is always told by the winning side.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Right, let's find out exactly what is castration. Castration is the removal of testicles. This stops reproduction and also halts the production of testosterone in men. Stopping testosterone, though, production before puberty prevents men from essentially developing into men. And you will obviously probably remember this, Drew, as a musician. Do you remember what the little boys were known as, that you were castrated in choirs back in the day?
Yeah.
Can you remember what they were called?
I can't remember.
They were literally called castrates.
Castrati. Yeah.
So a castrati was if
they could still hit the high notes.
I tell you what though, this is freaking brutal. This is brutal. This is almost like torture. If a boy had a good enough voice when he was young, back in the day, then they would literally castrate him before puberty so that he would never lose his voice. But imagine that'd be almost like so like humiliating. Then you'd grow up and you'd obviously naturally want to have a family, and not you would have. And you'd probably be like shorter, and you wouldn't like have ever like developed stubble, and it'd just be embarrassing,
Horrible way to go.
Would you, if you were castrated, would you still want to have a family, or would that almost like?
I reckon obviously not as much as a really like testosterone filled man, but I reckon there'd be this thing inside you deep down that would know that's probably what you were born to do, and I reckon you could probably get a bit depressed about that. Apart from anything else, a common syndrome in men of having a low testosterone count is actually
libido.
It's depression.
Oh yeah, low
libido as well. But they often say, like, if you're sort of like 40, 50, and you for some reason you've in recent years are starting to feel depressed, go have your hormones checked, because there might be a chance that, like, you know, because it's a fact that past the age of 40, even younger in some men even starts in their 30s, your testosterone starts dropping. And as I said, a common side effect of low testosterone in men is feelings of depression and anxiety. Testosterone is typically a happy hormone. It's quite an aggressive hormone, but it's also a very happy hormone. You sort of feel like full of energy and like strong, and you might be a bit like, you know, quick to anger maybe a bit more, which is obviously why roiders are like smoking from the ears every time they're told that you know their steroid dealer's out that month. But you know,
So are steroids different to testosterone? Like
it's a derivative of testosterone. It's considered an androgen, right? But yeah, so think of steroid as like a bespoke testosterone that's made, and then there's different steroids.
Different.
There's lots of different steroids that nowadays people take for lots of different reasons.
So if you went for testosterone replacement therapy,
that would just be testosterone.
So it wouldn't be any steroids.
No, it wouldn't be a steroid per se. It would literally be testosterone. So if you did say you got to 40, maybe you realised that you were losing muscle mass, you couldn't get it up for your missus, maybe felt a bit embarrassed about that, maybe you also were starting to feel a little bit down, thought, is there something I can do about this? Went to the doctor, he's like, yeah, I can confirm your testosterone count is lower than average. You can get on TRT and it'll bump it back up to average. The only issue with that is you probably want to make sure that you actually have got it and not just like taking it willy-nilly, literally, because once you start taking testosterone from an outside source,
it stops you producing it.
Your body will completely switch off.
That I heard that.
Apparently, it's like a similar. I'm not sure if this is the case, 100% the case. But I've heard that that's a similar thing of like why you should be very careful with taking. Is it melatonin, the sleep hormone?
Oh yeah.
If you take, because you can take that in
My
supplement
granddad takes
form.
that.
But if you take too much, you become reliant on it, which is fine as long as you have access to it. But then if you did it, you'd be like
buzzing your
kittens in bed, and you'd find it very hard to go to sleep.
They really work for my granddad as well. He's in his 90s, but he has a couple of melatonin in fact, and he sleeps all night.
It's literally the sleep hormone. So you know that feeling. You know when you're like super tired, and you're like,
I'd like to try one just to like see what it's like.
Well, people have it as like supplements, don't they? Melatonin?
Yeah. And apparently it is really good. Like you have amazing sleep from it, but it's just that thing to be aware of. Like, probably don't take it too much, because if it starts interfering with your body's natural production of melatonin, then a bit like your testosterone, then
you'll start relying on it. Yeah.
If we suddenly went to Armageddon and you can't get anything, then
you wait for it all.
You'd be awake and have no testosterone all the time, and that would suck. You know, rather than being asleep with just like a massive erection. Which is what I want to be, baby. Yeah, just dreaming.
Only way to sleep.
Good dreams, big erections. Sorry, everyone. Castrati. So obviously without your testes, when you get into puberty, it prevents developing all male qualities: facial hair, muscular development, libido, erections.
I wonder what castratis look like when they're like 40 and stuff. I'll have to have
probably just like really small little, like, you know, almost
like
no quite
facial
asexual,
hair.
I imagine.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Not feminine because they're not women, but like
not
just
masculine.
Like,
quite like asexual, I imagine.
It wasn't the rumours that Michael Jackson was castrated.
Yes, I think there was, wasn't there? Yeah. There was. Yeah, I mean, he wasn't a very masculine-looking guy either, was he?
But he had children, though, didn't he? Like,
but some of his kids are white, man.
Yeah, so
and
they're
it's
like not his kids.
I know that he turned white, which he claims was a medical thing.
Yeah.
I obviously don't want to talk ill of Michael Jackson.
Vitiligo.
But a lot of people say that
they weren't. Actually.
It wasn't a medical, and he had like plastic surgery done. That also, like, why would the skin thing? Why would that? Because his nose went from like a normal black dude's nose to like a little weird nose. Like, do you know what I mean? Like almost like a little,
I think he
almost like a cocaine nose. It looked like. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Very scary looking guy towards the end.
Did you see that episode of South Park where it's like Michael Jackson and it's like, yeah, that's pretty hilarious, isn't it? But yeah, I know. Do you know what? I actually wouldn't be surprised by that, because they did say that like he had a pretty horrible life, like growing up.
Yeah.
And he was like the
father
main.
was like really abusive and everything, wasn't he?
And they said, and he was like the main cash cow in like the Jackson 5, wasn't he?
So they were treating him like a cash cow.
And he was, and wasn't he like the youngest one as well, or he was the most successful one and one of the youngest anyway.
Yeah.
So it's like they wanted to like look after that voice, and like his voice was quite high, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like he could reach very high voice, and even his like standard singing voice, like. You know, it's like that sort of tone. It's like it wasn't like he had a normal voice, but he could get high, like say someone like Jeff Buckley did.
Yeah.
It was like his voice in general was very.
Hi, I'm Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
Which is quite strange for like a fully grown man.
Yeah.
Don't you think, Bubbles?
But yeah, so moving on from Michael Jackson anyway. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. We shall never know. We shall never know. Most testicles hang at different heights, and that's okay. For most men, the right testicle always hangs higher and is usually larger than the left. But that's not always the case. Sometimes it's the other way around.
Oh no, I think it is my left that's lower.
Now we're on some really interesting facts now. Did you know that beaver testicle tea, and also sometimes beaver testicle...
Some beaver testicle tea, please.
Would you like some beaver testicle tea? Yeah, or sometimes beaver testicle moonshine even.
Oh, baby.
Was used as a contraceptive by Canadian women between the 16th and 18th centuries. Imagine that.
Did it work?
Hey, babe, when you're going down the creek later, could you can you cut off some beaver balls to make me some...
that BTT.
Some BT. Yeah, crazy, isn't it? Yeah, and also, moving on, there are various theories on why men have external testicles. The most obviously widely believed, as we've already talked about, is that to keep the temperature cooler for your balls. But it doesn't explain why many mammals, including elephants, aardvarks, anteaters, etc., all have balls up inside their bodies, and yes, by their kidneys. I can confirm they are by their kidneys. Very strange, isn't it?
It's
They
quite a
don't
weak
live in
point,
houses.
isn't it? It's quite a weak, like...
Oh, it's a vulnerable point.
Yeah.
That's why those Japanese people can suck them up into their body. And then they get kicked in the balls. You ever seen that? Never seen that? Mate, that's it. They go...
Isn't it like...
They pull it up into their body and they're like...
Isn't it like Shaolin monks?
Yeah,
Isn't
they
it
can
Shaolin monks?
you can kick them right in between the legs and they won't even feel it.
I still
Shaolin
wouldn't
monks,
trust that, man.
No.
If I could do that, I still wouldn't trust that.
I remember my brother like kicked me as hard as he could in the balls when I was about 14, 15. And like man, it took me out of commission for like a good 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Like I was shocked because I'd had, there's like every now and again you get the odd like, you know what I mean, like ball like knock.
You'd never got a
But
full
a
on,
full
like,
frontal like large male like strike to the balls. It was brutal.
How would you describe it as a pain to the ladies listening? We'll never be able to
crippling in your belly.
Like it wasn't.
It's like your whole body is repulsed, isn't it?
It feels like in my stomach as well. Like something goes right up into your stomach with a pain.
Yeah,
It's weird.
I crippled over in pain, and I was basically like, say like when you're watching like a really really massive file download on a computer with really slow internet, the recovery process was like watching that file upload. Would you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I reckon that's like an accurate way to describe it. You know when you're like looking at it
in a YouTube video
and it's like 0.7%
5 gigabytes.
out of 100. That's what the recovery process felt like. It was like, usually like even if I gave you guys like a really nasty whack on the arm now or like a nasty Chinese burn, you'd be like at the time, and then literally 10 seconds after the pain would subside.
Yeah.
It's not like that with your balls, is it?
No.
It will stay for like a long time.
And all you can kind of do is roll around like heave. That's about it.
Oh yeah, and it does, like, if the worse it gets, the more you feel it like up in your abdomen and you feel sick and that. Yeah, it's crazy, man. This is a crazy fact. The largest scrotum on record of a human belongs to a man who was at the time 49 years old. His name was Wesley Warren.
Am I right there, good old Wesley?
Bullwinkle's cousin, biggest scrotum of all time.
What a man.
He was Bullwinkle.
Yeah, Bullwinkle. Yeah. Large, massive Bullwinkle, that was his name. He died from a heart attack last year, sadly.
Damn.
So, Wesley Warren, you are not just Bullwinkle's cousin, you are a friend of the pod.
Yeah.
God bless you and your insanely
How big were
massive
they?
scroat. It doesn't actually give measurements.
A great trampoline.
Yeah, imagine that. Like, I mean, we can only guess. I like the idea that it was just like like freakishly large.
Yeah.
Did you ever see that documentary? That guy who had
coming out his trouser leg at the bottom.
Literally. Did you see? There was this documentary, and there was this guy who had this like horrible thing. There was, I think, it was a growth on his balls or something, or it made him swell, and he could literally sit on them. He used to sit on his ball as like
that's not very nice.
As like a fucking seat. Oh, pardon my French.
It's right. You said bollocks about 10 times earlier, Drew.
Oh yeah. But yeah, he would be sat on it, and it was like, oh my god, this like horrible disease. I don't know what it was.
Yeah. Right. So he wasn't doing it by choice.
No, he just.
I thought you were almost making out that he like had this natural pillow.
No, it was this horrible disease that he has, right. and it just made him swell so huge that he'd literally have to be like carrying him around, and he'd sit on him and stuff.
Could he not like drain him or anything?
I don't know.
When you have like a cyst.
Do you know when it's like on this thing, like when you've just seen like a documentary like years ago?
Yeah, and you just remember the
and I was just like, like this is horrible. Like,
Yeah, I know what you mean,
Some
man.
weird BBC documentary or something.
This is another cool fact. Proportional to their size, the animal kingdom's biggest testicles belong to the tuberous bush cricket. Beg your pardon. Its testicles account for 14% of its body weight. That's quite a massive percentage, isn't it?
That's mental.
So yeah, everybody look up the tuberous bush cricket. Yeah, massive balls. The male right whales. So male right whales are one of the biggest species of baleen whales. So obviously think of like humpback whales, fin whales, blue whales. One of the other biggest baleen whales is right whales. Their testicles can weigh around 1 ton. 1 ton testicles.
Oh my God.
The 1 ton testy.
And can produce 4.5 litres, which is 1 gallon, of semen a day. Can you imagine that?
Mate, it's really weird because on the way down here I was thinking, I wonder how many litres are in a gallon.
4.5.
There you go.
Yeah, another example.
Something.
Another example of serendipity, me old mucker.
Lovely jubbly.
Yeah, so that unfortunately brings us to the end of our bull facts for today. I know. I wish I'd brought sort of.
I never knew there was that many facts about the balls.
I expect there's some more, man.
Yeah.
I expect there's some more, but
if you know any bull facts,
well, let's finish it on a nice one. Obviously,
on the comments.
There's definitely. Let us know any bull facts or any facts in general you want to share with us. Before we move on to the last subject of the day, what are your favourite bull slang terms? Obviously, there's many good ones.
Gonads.
Yeah, do you know what? I was thinking
Gonads is a good one.
Gonads is a good one, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think, like,
It's a funny word, isn't it? Gonad.
I like it's not used as much, but I think the old coin purse is hilarious. The old coin purse.
I think plums is quite a fun
Yeah,
one.
plums.
I love plums.
Plums is comical, yeah. Grapefruits.
Yeah.
I love that, like almost like the
Nuts.
opposite of grapefruits, like acorns. Like you're almost like, you know what I mean? Like just
Your acorns.
implying that you have just tiny little balls.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Chestnuts. Meg always calls them chestnuts.
Yeah, your chestnuts. Yeah. Yeah, family jewels. Your family jewels.
Yeah,
That's
crown
another,
jewels.
because it's also like accurate.
Two veg.
Yeah, meat and two veg. Yeah, you're meat and two veg. Yeah, that's a good one. So right, moving on to our last sort of topic of the day. We're obviously a fan here on the pod. We've talked about lots of people with sort of like unusual abilities in the past, almost like borderline superhumans. Many episodes ago, we talked about the man who thought he was a normal human and then got hit like head-on collision by like a car going at quite some speed.
I remember this.
And obviously he got rushed to the hospital.
Bones.
Obviously he was like bleeding and stuff. The ambulance rushed him to the hospital. The doctors thought it was just like they're like, once over of him would be a formality because there's no way that like a human could survive that sort of like crash. But they gave him, once they actually gave him once over, they realised that none of his bones was broken. And they were like, what the hell? It turned out he had this like very, very rare medical condition that made his bones like 4 times denser and stronger than the average person's, which means that his bones were like almost indestructible. So in that regard, it was almost a bit like Wolverine from the X-Men. It was like adamantium skeleton. Yeah. The only downside of being like that is apparently because your bones are so dense, it's very hard to swim. So I don't know if he ever like went swimming in his life and just thought like, man,
this is hard.
This is freaking hard. Like, why is everyone else like swimming? Am I just super bad at swimming, or what? Or maybe it was just one of those rare humans that like just never really went swimming. Like some people, like, have you ever got anyone in your family that just can't swim, even though they're like quite old and stuff?
Maybe they've got denser bones. I know people that can't swim. Maybe that's their reason.
Nanny Pauline, indestructible.
I remember when I went on a school trip once, like when I was living in Suffolk. This is like how old the memory was. It's like pre-5, and there was this group from London that had been there that were there as well, kids, and they'd never seen the sea before. And I was like, that's pretty weird. Like, what you say about swimming?
Yeah, that is pretty mental. Yeah.
I remember our mate Arch said that because he grew up in Aylesbury, and he said he'd never seen a cow until he moved to Somerset. I was like, what? Like when you grew up in Somerset, like you just like you see cows everywhere.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like you can't really like travel to any town like around our town without passing some cows at some point, even on the motorway. Do you know what I mean? Go down the motorway, you'll see some fields on the left-hand side. Yeah, grass fit, man. But, yeah, and I remember you were even talking as well about how like Ozzy Osbourne has like a mutation where his like liver can process alcohol way better than the average person.
I think that might be around 4 times as well, like 4 times quicker or something than the average person.
I just remember that it was like a lot better. Basically, it was like way more efficient. But that's probably why he's alive today and why he's never like died of like basically liver failure.
Like an alcoholic version of the Bajau tribe. That can like stay underwater.
Yeah, that was cool, isn't it? That's almost like evolution, like happening in real time. That's really cool. But this guy that we're going to talk to you about today, his name is Ngok Tai, and he and he is just like no longer needs to sleep. He hasn't slept since 1973.
What?
That's mad,
Mate,
isn't it?
I'm jealous of that.
Obviously, like, sleep is something that, like, according to science, we all need.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if you don't sleep, you will go completely insane.
Yeah.
And eventually die. Like, sleep deprivation is, like, really bad. Like, really, really bad. Especially over the long term. But Ngok Thai is now 82 years old. He's 82 years old and he hasn't slept in nearly 50 years. Yeah, so since 1973. He's an 82-year-old farmer from Vietnam who claims not to have slept since 1973.
Oh, I've seen about this guy.
Yeah.
I've seen some.
He's
video
gone
about
very
this guy.
viral in the last year. Thai Ngok, who hails from Quang Nam province in Vietnam, spends his days tending his crops and ponds as a farmer, as well as raising his fish in the Nha Trang Valley. Unlike others, though, who rest when the sun sets, he purportedly works tirelessly both day and night. Right, so he doesn't need to sleep; he just works all day and night. Right. He says that even though he's 82 years old and hasn't slept since 1973, he still can carry 50 kilograms of fertilizer around his 4-kilometer sort of compound around his house and his fields without feeling tired. All right. He says that he began to lose his ability to sleep after contracting a fever from an unknown disease back in 1973. Since then, his condition persisted despite seeking medical advice and prescriptions from doctors at the Da Nang Hospital in Vietnam. Sleep deprivation typically leads to various symptoms, including irritability, impaired cognitive function, reduced concentration, lack of memory, and extreme fatigue. These symptoms will gradually worsen in cases where individuals go without sleep for multiple days. And then it goes on to say that Ngok's case appears to be an anomaly, as he is shown to have adapted well to life without sleep, whereas pretty much anybody else, would just basically cease to function in a productive way. But isn't that crazy?
Man, that's one of the most crazy things I've ever heard, I think.
Just doesn't sleep.
Like, on the show, I think that genuinely is like a top 3 most insane things I've ever heard. How can you... What?
How does his body function?
And not just that, but he's 82. He's 82. He works day and night. He can still carry 50 kilos of fertilizer around his 4-kilometer, sort of compound where he works and lives. Every day, works day and night. 82 years old, hasn't slept since 1973. To put that in perspective, me and Drew were both born in 1990. The last time he slept was 17 years before me and Drew were born. And I'm 34. Drew's about to turn 34 next month. That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, madness, man. I remember in the video I saw of him as well, it was like 2 guys like went and visited him and then like tried to stay up all night with him and like film it all and stuff.
Really?
And it's like this little like documentary on YouTube of him doing it. And he would drink quite a lot as well. He was like, he wouldn't eat much either, so he wouldn't eat much.
Right.
I remember from like watching it, and he would drink this like rice wine as well. Like So
common in Vietnam.
Yeah.
That's really cool, man.
So, is sleep like... Obviously, we need sleep, but is that just because of what our brain's telling us?
I thought it was
literally
to sort things out in your brain.
I think it's one of those things where scientists don't actually know exactly why we need to sleep, but we know why we need to sleep. I know that sounds really like confusing. We know that we need to sleep to process memories so that we can recharge, recover physically, blah blah blah, all that stuff. But we don't know, from an evolutionary standpoint, it seems like quite of bad benefit or of little benefit to no benefit to have to sleep. But I think it's just a necessity. I think it's as simple as we wish that, say, our phones could go without recharging, but it's just not plausible. When you have something that's like functioning at such a high level, you need to recharge. And I guess like organisms, the same as electronic things, are just the same.
He must have to rest, surely. Like, there must be points where his muscles are giving in, and he's got to
You'd think so, wouldn't you? I mean, I don't know. We'll have to look into him more. Maybe we can find out some more.
Is mental.
Imagine we got him as a guest on the pod.
That'd be amazing.
Just to finish the show today, one of the things we did last week on the show, we talked about the fastest animals, land, sea and air, and we were saying about how the fastest bird is the peregrine falcon, and the fastest overall. Just want to thank a guy who goes on Instagram by Maddox710, who commented on our Instagram post saying that the swift, while the peregrine falcon is the fastest bird overall, the swift is the fastest bird at level flight. I then looked it up, and he was right. So in terms of just flying in a straight line, the Swift is actually the fastest bird in a straight line in level flight, even if it's not the fastest bird overall. And in level flight, Swifts can get up to 69 miles an hour. So thanks for Maddox710 for that fact. You are a friend of the pod. Thanks to everyone else that listens to the pod. We love you. We hope you've enjoyed another episode of Pandora's Box. Next week, we've got one of the biggest guests we've ever had on the pod, Mr. Pat McNamara. Pat is ex-Special Forces for the US military. He's also just a badass guy. He's got a podcast, which I believe is called University of Badassery. He also has his own coffee. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. Go follow T-Max Sync on Instagram if you want to check out next week's guest. I said, awesome guy, great sense of humour, great taste in music. He's an absolute machine, lovely guy. Yeah, he's going to be awesome having a chat with Pat McNamara. So hope you guys tune in for that one. Thanks for joining us for another Pandora's Box. Cheers, guys. Have a good one.
Thank you very much.